red flags and I'm diving into you. They're big ones for me.
I see red flags and I'm just taking it day by day because it's early.
I just need help.
Hey guys, and welcome to Little Black Bird 91. We are talking to you about Mark and Lindsay. Mark has ignored his last red flag before. You'll find out a little bit more as the review goes on. So make sure you stay on this review. But if you're new to the channel, do me a favor, like it, share, subscribe, click on the bell button for notification of uploads. And for those of you who are returnees, you already know what it is. You got the minerals. You got the minerals. Stay hydrated because the streets out there are hot. All right, let's get into the video. But before we do, you know what we've got to do? We've got first and foremost, let the intro go, baby.
Little Black Bird, you know what time it is.
All right, cool. Let's get into the video. So just hearing that very first video you just watched there, they both said something very quite interesting. She first off started by saying, you know what, I'm having to bypass some red flags in dealing with you, Mark. And Mark said, yeah, me too. I'm bypassing red flags just like you, okay? So I'm taking it slow. And then she's like, oh my gosh, I can't take this all of a sudden, because Lindsay can't take what she dishes out. That's my personal opinion. Lindsay can't dish what she hands out. Maybe there's a little bit of projection, a bit more bias from my perspective. I've kind of seen this energy before. I've kind of seen this behavior before as well. And I mentioned it in the very beginning of the show, the very first time she had a blow up. And I said, you're going to see more of this toxic behavior from her. You're going to see her intentionally hurting him because she's not healed. And when you've not healed, okay, you tend to hurt other people because hurt people hurt others. But in this particular case, her level of hurting is a verbal attack. That's how she hurts you. She cuts you. Now, there's many people out in the world like this who are probably married still, in relationships still, single still, who know how to cut you verbally because they've not healed. And they would call it, I'm a straight shooter, I shoot from the hip. It's nonsense. You hurt people. All right, you're not being straight, you're not being truthful, okay, because truth without love is cruelty. What you're really doing is shooting from the hip, and that's what Lindsay does. And as soon as it came back from Mark, she instantly went, oh my gosh, what's going on here, baby? You just said that you're ignoring red flags whilst dealing with him, and he said the exact same thing to you. Where's the shock? Did you think that you were clean? Did you think that you were perfect in the situation? You weren't. Okay, he's got issues with you, you got issues with him. Okay, let's go a little bit later on in the show because I want to really deal with some things now and break some things. We're going to break it down bit by bit because there's quite a lot to break down in between their relationship, right? So they're going to start talking about their relationship and the issues that are going on. So Lindsay's going to start first and we're going to break down what she's saying here.
We're going to figure this out. I still think this is meant to be a beautiful marriage. What I'm seeing is you not giving me the best version of you.
Pause. I want you to just pay attention, first of all, to the body language. Pay attention to the language that's being used, and you'll find out what kind of context we're dealing with here. She says, I still feel it's going to be a great relationship. I still think it's going to be a great marriage, etc., etc. But what I'm not is I'm not getting the best from you. Right? Whenever your finger gets into people's faces in the Western side culture, of doing things when we interact, social interactions, that becomes number one, aggressive, and number two, it also becomes about pointing fingers and blaming other people, right? And then if you listen to the language, she said, you're not giving me your best. You've already started putting the blame on him, right? And I'm not trying to give him scot-free. We're going to deal with him as well. But what I'm saying is, when you do that, that instantly brings up a defense. Because you've already started accusing. We use think and we use feel. I use think and feel because that doesn't make it sound like a fact. What she just said there is you're definitely not giving me your best, and you're not giving me you're definitely not giving me your best from you, right? Whilst at the same time telling him off. That's what the finger wagging does. It's a tell-off situation, right? Now, if someone's getting told off by their partner in this kind of situation, they're not going to feel comfortable to come towards you and have a conversation. They're not going to feel confident to want to feel like this is a safe space that I can actually share how I feel with you without being, lambasted. Okay? All right? So that's very important.
And you don't see that. And that frustrates me. I've literally just tried to, help you where I think you need help.
I want to pause it again. she talks about how, you're not giving me your best. And this is why language is also important, because whenever things like this, she says frustrates me. Okay, all right. I want to make it very clear to you guys. This is a learning for everybody. Oftentimes, whenever I'm dealing with people, and especially when it's coaching, frustrates, anger, are usually not the actual principal emotions you're feeling. Right? Frustration and anger, it tends to cloud what actually is happening to you, right? Because how we interpret that emotion, again, I'm going to say Western society, because in other cultures it might be referenced differently. How we internalize, or how we receive the word frustrations in the English language, especially, okay, is the fact that someone is saying, it's not a very vulnerable word. Emotions on its own are not. So the definition of frustration is the feeling of being upset or annoyed, especially because of an inability to change or achieve something. But oftentimes, the definition of the word is lost. What I mean by that is when people use the word frustration, it often gets attached to anger. It often gets attached to overt energy, right? Rather than it being about the vulnerability of that person. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes what can happen is when you say I'm frustrated, right, in a particular context, which is this particular context, what happens is it comes a wall up. So frustration on its own is not a bad word. Again, I'll read the definition. It's a very good word. The feeling of being upset or annoyed, especially because of an inability to change or achieve something. The part that really gets people is that it usually goes into annoyed rather than upset. If you say I'm upset, it tends to bring a bit more vulnerability. Or I'm hurt. I always tell you guys this word is a very key word. I am hurt by what you've done. Okay, and it's hard for people to say I'm hurt because that's more vulnerable, just because of the way that we interpret some of the language we use in the English spectrum. Okay, again, frustration is not necessarily a bad thing, but I think the way that we receive it can often build up a wall rather than letting that person see a vulnerability side of you. Hey, the thing you just done there, I'm hurt by that, because I don't get to see, I felt like I'm not getting the best of you, and that hurts me. It's a completely different sentence. But again, I'm interpreting it from my perspective, and given that particular perspective, you may see it differently, but that's just what I'm bringing out there. Let's play a little bit longer, the clip.
I get it. So there's a lot going on here.
I think that you're not processing these changes well.
Lovely. See how she changed the language here? She didn't make it a matter of fact. She said, I think you're not processing these things very well, which leaves it open for him to challenge and to say, hey, I heard what you think. From my perspective, that's not what I'm doing. I'm very well equipped to handle the situation. I think I also feel like these situations, X, Y, and Z, are actually the true contributing factors to why I feel the way I do. This was very good. She said, I think. But before that, she said, you're not giving me your best self. That's going to make him feel like he's been accused. Right? Especially as we're only 8 days in as well. So, she solicited correctly in this instance by using the I think, I feel, what I'm saying? Letting another person know that, hey, look, this is how the person feels. Okay? So we're going to play the clip a little bit longer as well.
And you went from sharing your fears and concerns with me and us having sex to you not even wanting to hold my hand or be affectionate with me. Don't roll your eyes.
Again, beautifully laid out by Lindsay again. We went from, having sex to absolutely nothing, etc., etc. And now I'm not sure what she would have said after, but it was going really, really well until he then rolled his eyes. Now, him rolling his eyes in this instance actually removes also the vulnerability too. Whenever you roll your eyes, what you're really saying is you are showing a dissenting view towards what the person is saying, and you're actually not representing yourself very well, because what you're doing is you're actually shutting down the allowance of that person to have a safe space to express their true feelings. Now, whether you think it's right or wrong, when we do that, that's what it does. It stops the flow. Notice how now she focused on the eye roll rather than continuing her sentence. Why? Because an eye roll, it makes it feel like you are not listening and you don't care. So you got to watch out for your body language. He didn't say anything. He just showed his body language, right? Cool.
That's how I feel.
Okay.
That's exactly what I'm feeling.
Just let her get it all out,
Okay.
please.
And I'm
without
telling you that. And I'm telling you, my feelings are hurt because you went.
Now, beautiful. That's where she came to. See, I'm telling you, my feelings are hurt. Right? That's the place we want to get to. When you get to that place where you say your feelings are hurt, now we can have a real conversation, because that's where people can start to be, okay, I see it now. I didn't realize I hurt you. Do you know how many men and women I've never heard their partner say that they're actually hurt by them? So the argument just keeps going on and on and on, because everybody just thinks that, you know what, I'm angry. But it's because of the way we interpret this information. So really, really important there that she mentioned about the fact that she's feeling hurt. You can see the emotion coming through as well. He's got to pay attention now, right? This is really important. He's got to pay attention.
From all to nothing. I'm so insulted and offended by you. I'm so mad right now. I literally cannot talk to you. I need.
And now she's gone to insulted, mad, and she can't talk to him. Right? And I don't want to invalidate her feelings. I want to keep that there and say, you know, that's a fair enough. You know, she's already expressed how she feels hurt. She also feels insulted. She feels mad. She can't talk to him at this moment. All right. And that's totally understandable, right? Because in that situation, also at the same time, as a human being, you won't just feel one emotion, right? So now we've unearthed the root and said, okay, I'm hurt. We've got to that bottom of it. Fine. You know, I'm insulted. I'm mad. I can't talk to you right now because of X, Y, and Z. Fantastic, because now the person should be paying attention, right? They should be paying attention. We've gone below the surface, and we've come back up, and here's the surface. Brilliant.
To take a moment because I'm furious and you're clueless, and it makes me so mad.
Now here we go where it goes off, and I knew it was going there, but I wanted to give her still props for going. You know what I mean? When we get to the point where you say you're fucking clueless, I'm telling you now, if you say this to your partner, you are damaging your relationship. You are damaging your relationship. Anytime you begin to start insulting your partner for any reason, you have started damaging a relationship. Okay? Anytime you begin to insult your partner, you have started a process that is almost unreversible, because every time you insult, they get deeper and deeper into the trenches of feeling resentment towards you, and frustration and anger towards you, and feeling hurt towards you. Never go to a place where you have to start insulting your partner. It should never be on the vocabulary. It should never be on the table. It should never be a place we go to, right? It should never be. We express how we feel. We express how we feel. We don't insult. Very, very important. We're not on a playground anymore, all right?
Work on us.
I'm gonna tell you something.
So one of the things that obviously when I also do as well when I'm working with couples is you know, we try to do a listening exercise where we get the person to repeat back what has been said. And the reason why we do that is because we want a person to realize, did you actually hear what they said? Did you deep what they said? And did you understand what they said? Can you repeat what they said? Because if you can repeat it, then it's sunken in, right? So she was doing really well up until the effing clueless part, and then, you know, she moved on from there. And so I just want to again pinpoint there are goods and bads here in terms of how we should and shouldn't operate, because we want to make sure we're doing the right thing with our partners when we're dealing with them and having conversation with them. Now let's look a little bit more into his particular grievances, because he starts off by talking about what's making him pull back a little bit, and I think that's really important. Here we go.
You're afraid.
Of.
You're afraid to say things to her.
Because I just met her. So when I don't know somebody, I don't really speak up at times.
Notice he said, you're afraid. And and Mark the Shark said this. It said, of what? He wanted to make sure before he answered the question. And he said, you're afraid, basically. And he's like, yeah, because I've just met her. And he has to go on and explain this, because just saying you're afraid makes sense for nobody. He has to be able to explain what he's afraid of. And this is where change happens in relationships, where there's true transparency and honesty. I don't like how you behave. I don't like how you treat me, because it makes me feel like, okay, right? When we state that I don't like the position, I don't like, okay, this behavior because it makes me feel like. So we talk about the behavior, we talk about the emotion, okay, and we should talk about response. So I've turned a new acronym now, BER, BER, BER. Okay, we talk about the behavior, we talk about the emotion, and we wait for a response. Okay, I'm gonna put it on the screen so you guys can see what I'm talking about, right? BER, behavior, emotion, response. I would just be, the Lord just be dropping these things in my heart. You know what I'm saying? Good, the Holy Spirit be good. Okay, BER. Okay, behavior. Okay, behavior, emotion, response. And what this really is about, it's about you being, when you are in the position of the person who's been hurt, or you're talking, I should say, even, you say the behavior, what you did here, etc., etc. I didn't like it because it made me feel. So the behavior, first and foremost, when you said shut up, that's the behavior, that's B. When you said that, okay, the emotions coming now, it made me feel like I was insignificant and small. And then you present that to a person and you see where the response is, right? So we do this so that the person has a clear working framework to understand where you're coming from. The B and E are very important because the behavior without the emotion leaves it just as, oh, you said shut up, and then before you know it, you're going to go into insults because you're not explaining how you really feel, right? We often go into insults and we get into fights because we're not explaining how we feel. The behavior and the emotion. How do I feel? How does that make me feel? Be able to explain it. And if you can't, probably need to take some time out as well. Go and find the language for it. Google it. Type it in. Find out the language for it so you can explain this appropriately to your partner in a way that they can receive it. Okay? All right? The R could be for receive as well if you want it to be. But it should be a response after in accordance to your B and E. And that B and E is a good framework because what it means is when that person goes outside of the framework, you can say, hey, I appreciate that, but I want to deal specifically with this particular point here. When you said shut up, this is actually how I felt. Let's deal with that first and we can deal with other things after. This is my B and E. They should be able to respond to that. A good emotionally aware person, which a lot of people aren't, should be able to respond to that B and E. Okay? Should be able to. All right? Let's watch a little bit more.
Yeah, I hear you.
Get over it, man. I'm here. Just tell me.
But that's great that you feel that way. That's how you feel. That's not how I work inside.
So, as he's made it very clear, he doesn't work the same way as her. He feels differently and about the way that he moves. And I think, again, it's obvious both parties move in different ways, and that's most couples. They don't often do things exactly the same way. That's life, and that's how we grow. But what I want to focus more on, I want to go a bit past that. I want to get to this point where he says about her energy.
Okay, so let's talk about how you work inside.
Okay, so I meet you at the wedding, and a lot of excitement, different than what I've ever seen in.
Okay, so now he's come on to the energy of Lindsay. The truth of the matter, I don't think he's even been all that honest. There's too much energy for him. Let's keep it a buck. There's way too much energy for him. We know that already. From the very jump, for him personally, there's too much energy. He can't deal with it. This is nothing to do with her extrovertedness. It's to do with the fact that of how she deals with social contexts. See, you can be you've got to have an off button. Like, for instance, I understand, right? I've got to have an off button, right? I can't always be in interviewer mode. I've said this before to you guys. You can't always be in interviewer mode. You can't be always asking questions that are interview styled. I got to get out of work mode. I can't always dance everywhere I go. I love dancing, but it's not every function I must dance. I have to understand the social context of that function. I'm entitled to, but I want to be able to honor the person I'm with and who I'm in company with. If that's not the context, let's not do that. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah? All right, we'll play a little bit more.
And a girl, and I'm kind of like, she's a lot. But then we talk all night. We let out everything that we maybe try to talk about, let it out. We have an intimate moment, and it felt.
So this is probably one of the biggest contentions for them both, because they're talking about now the intimacy, which is what she mentioned earlier on as a point of sore point for her, because the intimacy went from having sex to dropping to nothing. And I think she's really hurt about that, because it's a form of rejection for her and for a lot of people. If you went from all to nothing, it is a form of rejection. You will feel some type of way about it, because you've gone from the top to the bottom real quickly. No in between. So I totally understand, that Lindsay's feeling some type of way. And I think her fear is making her fight Mark in this particular way, right? Her fear is making her want to hold on to him, yet push him away at the same time. And that's the complicatedness of human beings in that sense. So let's talk a little bit more about, the change. I want to talk about the change because he says something really interesting here about the situation.
I didn't do that to just do it. I felt something that night.
Yeah.
But what happened the second time and third time...
Now, what he's talking about here, he says obviously he felt something that night. What did he feel? On the honeymoon, what he had felt. He had said previously that the plane situation, they had the boat situation. There were one too many situations where Lindsay was involved and she was moving mad. Now, not only was she moving mad with them, he also saw some madness from her too, right? You pick up on these little sharp responses that she has, and the fact the family said, make sure you tell her no. Like, he had to go and apologize on her behalf. There's just a lot of things that he's looking at going, I'm not liking this. And we knew that from early. He was not feeling her way of dealing with things, right? Nobody should have to deal with the things that she's dealing with anyway. Nobody wants to deal with that level of behavior. So that was beginning the point of the turn off for Mark. And he tries to let her know, hey, I want to listen, if I have to take it slow, if I have to go from sex to nothing, right? There's a big chance I'm getting myself ready to exit relationship. For a man to go from intimacy to pretty much nothing, there's a big chance he's about to quit the relationship, which is why Lindsay's also looking at going, I feel rejected, and I can see that he's exiting. Because you've gone from the top to the bottom very quickly. And, he goes on to say, and I'll play a little bit more of the clip and I'll explain why I'm saying what I'm saying. Okay, let's go here.
At times, I feel like I'm not in my own skin. I've seen you poke, and it makes me uncomfortable.
There we go. That's what we needed. Why he's feeling what he's doing. I've seen you poke. That's a behavior. And it makes me feel uncomfortable. Okay? Behavior, emotion. What I tell you? Behavior, emotion. Okay? Behavior, emotion. So, at the moment, they're all getting out all their feelings. But if you're alone, you might not have this opportunity. You might want to give that person a chance to respond to that. But because what you don't want to do is overload them with all too many issues. But the first go round of conversation, and maybe I'll do a separate video on this. The first go round of conversation, we should be getting out how we feel, just getting it out all the way, right? The second time around we go addressing it is addressing specifically behaviors and the emotion behind it, and what kind of response we want from it, right? What kind of reaction we want from it, what are the changes we want from it. Okay, but he says quite clearly here, you poke and poke and poke, and it makes me feel uncomfortable. Okay, cool. Now these pokings, we've seen it also solo. She did some poking in the hotel. She did some poking with him one-to-one. After the whole, he let her know about the sex thing that they wanted to go away. She did a lot of poking then. She did some poking on the boat. She did some poking on the plane. Like, she did a lot of Pokemon. Yeah, she did a lot of Pokemon. You know what I mean?
I don't poke you. I just shut my mouth.
How does it feel to hear him say he's afraid?
Now, you notice what he said here, and that's the problem with Mark that we have to deal with here. He needs to find his voice. He said, obviously, you poke and poke, and I just keep quiet. Well, if you're keeping quiet, sir, she ain't going to know. She needs to be told. They told you, make sure you let her know that no. If you're not doing that, what's going to happen is she's not going to be aware of what she's actually doing wrong. Sometimes we feel, I don't want to ruffle the feathers. I don't want to be rude. I wouldn't like it to be done to me, so I'm not going to do it to you. But the truth of the matter is, without there being an interception of input with words, of action, to let them know there's a different course of action to take, they will continue in the same path. Can't blame her because you haven't stopped her. Can't blame her because you haven't said that it needs to be different. When you do that, then you can actually begin to solicit change in the individual person as well. But let's listen to this.
To express things to you.
Honestly, it feels like I never gave him a reason to feel that way.
No self-awareness. Okay, or at least she's ignoring the self-awareness because she doesn't want to be able to take accountability for her actions. And the reason why is because she thinks she's right. And the reason why she also is, as soon as actually, the reason why she's going to defend herself, wants to protect herself. Admitting that she's wrong, again, we spoke about this previously in the past few weeks. Admitting you're wrong means feeling like your whole ego is wrong, meaning your whole concept of you is wrong. And it means it can be leading to, if I accept this and say I'm wrong, then he could potentially reject me and leave me. If I say I'm wrong and I'm not perfect, then he could go away. But that's not what's happening here. She needs that vulnerability, and she needs to admit her wrong so that he can be vulnerable again with her. Right? So there's a lot that's going on with these two. I think even later on, Mark even said about let me fix myself, because she was kind of wanting to help him with everything. A man needs space sometimes to figure some stuff on his own, but he has to let her know that. He can't be passive. He can't be sitting here saying, I expect her to know, when you're not letting her know. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'm going to leave it there. Listen, look. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe if you like what we do. Click on the bell button for notification of the uploads. We appreciate you guys. Stay locked and stay loaded. We'll see you again soon.
Little black book.